Hello, and welcome to the second to last episode. Episode is the wrong word. Session is the word I'm looking for. The second to last session on the second day of Idtx 2023. Thank you all for joining us. I'm aware that you're not here to listen to me, and are in fact here to listen to the much more interesting Sarah. So I will hand over the reins to the stage as soon as I can. The only things I need to make you aware of are the last session of the day after this is our keynote from Rick Jacobs, which is one not to miss. Fantastic session coming there. And the Q&A kind of acts as our communications form here in Zoho. So if there's anything you want to say, anything you want to ask Sarah, the Q&A is the place to put it. Other than that, thank you all very much for attending. Sarah, thank you for presenting, and I shall shut up and get out of the way. Over to you.
Thanks, Tom. All right, we're going to jump right in because I have a lot I want to talk about. And when I practiced, I went over a little bit. So let's jump right in. So we're going to talk about things that you can do in PowerPoint that a lot of people don't know that you can do in PowerPoint. So real quick about me, I am the lead instructional designer at Econometrica. We are a research and management organization, primarily working on federal contracts, but we have some other clients also, a lot in the healthcare and housing areas. So while my colleagues are doing, research, evaluation studies, management, I am doing part of the sort of dissemination of whatever it is that they find. And part of that is designing presentations, and part of it is videos, e-learning courses, slide decks, job aids, websites, a little bit of everything. Disclaimer, I'm not a graphic designer, so I did my best on this slide deck, but don't hold it against me if I made any graphic design faux pas. But anyway, the point of that is all to say that these are what I'm going to talk about today are things that I have found through various resources that I use very often in my work developing presentations. But that is not my full-time thing that I do. And so if you want some more detail or you want to really get into the advanced stuff, I included some resources at the end of this presentation and also in the handouts that you can see. And it's not like 100 different resources. It's a few things that I found most helpful. A quick note about the handouts. I did not get them to Tom in time for him to put them in the conference stuff. So if you go to my LinkedIn, you can get them from there. And I was able to download it on desktop, but mobile, I couldn't figure out how to do that. So if you need me to send it to you or whatever, just let me know and I will get it to you. All right. So you may have noticed I am not on camera in the Zoho meeting platform, and I'm on camera sometimes in my PowerPoint. So that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about before we really dig into stuff. But first, real quick about this presentation. My goal is to do things that will help focus the audience's attention. Like I said, I'm not a graphic designer, so like the visual look, the aesthetic of things is not what I'm most interested in. I'm most interested in focusing the audience's attention on what they should be focusing on and not distracting them. So this presentation is going to introduce you to a lot of things, and I will talk about at a high level how to do them. So if you already have pretty advanced skills in PowerPoint, you can probably do these things just listening to me. But there are also step-by-step instructions in the handout. That QR code on the screen right now, that'll take you to my LinkedIn if you want to do it, on your mobile device, or the address is there if you want to get to it on your desktop to get the handouts. But the step-by-step instructions are all in there. I didn't want to spend too much of our time trying to walk through everything. I think it's probably better to use our time to see what's possible, and you are all learning professionals. So you should be able to use the handout. You can ask me questions, you can Google it. Another note, I work on both Windows and Mac. Everything that I'm talking about is related to the Windows version of PowerPoint 365. Some things work a little bit differently in Mac and some things don't work in Mac. So if you're working in a Mac environment, I apologize. You might have to do a little extra work to figure out how to do things. And then finally, I presented on this topic at my local Central Ohio ATD conference in the fall, and then ATD Tech Knowledge last month. So this content is some of that, some new stuff, but you'll notice some of my screenshots are from a previous presentation that I didn't want to redo. So I apologize for that. Okay, I want to challenge you while we're doing this to keep a list of the techniques that you can see yourself using. Conferences, you learn about a whole bunch of great stuff and then you get back to work and all of that stuff kind of goes away. So write it down on a piece of paper or keep track on your computer somewhere so that you can just look back at this and remember the things that you thought you might use in your work. Okay, so this is, it's called Cameo, this feature where I can put my camera wherever I want in the presentation, and I can decide when I want to be on camera. So right now you're seeing, the full screen view of me. Throughout this presentation, you'll see different shapes, different locations, different treatments that I've done to the camera. So you can, whoops, sorry. There we go. You can change it up every slide. And so you'll see some examples of that throughout this presentation. And it works just like any other shape. So you can add borders, you can add effects to it. And you could do something like this, where you make your camera take up the whole screen and then you can put information on top of it. Okay, one more before we get into really the heart of the content here. This slide is a sort of menu agenda slide that I like to use. And this is something in PowerPoint called Section Zoom, and it has nothing to do with the Zoom meeting platform. It's called Section Zoom because you'll see we're going to zoom into each section of the presentation. So within PowerPoint, you can insert sections. I like to do it on the slide sorter view, but you can do it in the regular view. It's in the Insert tab on the ribbon. And what this will do for us, I have divided my presentation into 4 sections, and then the beginning slide for each of those sections looks like this. So you can see section 1, that is the actual slide that starts off section 1. And so as we go through the presentation, it's going to sort of zoom us into section 1. We'll go through the slides in section 1, and then PowerPoint will take us back to this slide. This is a nice way to be able to orient your audience about where they're at in the presentation, what you've covered so far, what's coming up, especially since you'll notice I don't have any slide numbers in this presentation because a lot of the animations and stuff are built across multiple slides. And so to have a slide number might be kind of confusing. You'll see once we get a little further into it what I'm talking about. But so this I find really helpful. I use it in all my presentations. So let's look at what that looks like. And see, it zooms us into section 1 of the presentation. So first thing we're going to talk about is some design tips. This presentation overall goes from sort of more simple to more complex things. So we'll go a little more quickly through the first 2 sections and take our time a little bit more in sections 3 and 4. But in this section, we're going to talk about some alternatives to those defaults that are in PowerPoint. Back in the day, I don't know, probably before I was born, I don't know when PowerPoint was invented, but professional designers designed presentations. And, they did it with the same way that you would do marketing materials or advertising materials. And it would be very engaging, visually focused. And then PowerPoint came along and everyone can create presentations and, great. But a lot of times we end up with this same sort of format. You might change the colors, but you've got the title at the top, bullet points with all your text, and you might have just like a plain background. And so we're going to talk about some easy things that you can do a little bit differently to make your presentation not the PowerPoint default. So for bullet points, you can use icons. Usually I try and match my icons to whatever the content actually is. But in this case, we're just doing smiley faces here. But you could use icons instead of bullet points. You could use colored text boxes. You'll see that all throughout my presentation. I use that a lot. You could just do text without bullet points. You don't really need bullet points. Put a little space in between each idea in the text. And let me just real quick. So if you don't know about this yet, the paragraph spacing, you can, any text, you can right click on it and you can adjust this. Where it says the spacing, that before and after 12 point in the third box down there. Actually, I think we can point it. Yeah, here we go. That allows you to adjust the spacing in between each paragraph, and a bullet point counts as a paragraph. So if you are doing bullet points and you want to have some extra space in between your bullet points or just in between your thoughts without the bullet points, you can adjust the spacing here. This is different from double spacing. Double spacing will space all of the lines. This will, single space within that bullet point and then double space, or, whatever spacing you choose, to go to the next bullet point. And so that's very handy. I use that all the time. And then finally, a labeled graphic. We'll look at some examples of this. Ideally, you want to have as little text as possible on the slides, right? You want to show your audience with graphics, animations, things that won't distract from what you're saying. And so this is one example of something that you could do instead of bullet points. Full slide, we've got a picture of a road because it's a project roadmap. This is very, I guess I'm calling it abstract. It's not really abstract, but you can put your, deliverables, your project plan on this roadmap. It's just a little bit different, more interesting way to show this stuff rather than the plain bullet points. This next example, this is a little more concrete. So I live in Ohio. Maybe I'm telling you something about Columbus. It's 2 hours from Cleveland. It's 2 hours from Cincinnati, blah, 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 blah. If you don't know Ohio, then that doesn't probably make a lot of sense to you. And so showing this diagram, it won't distract you from what I'm saying, but it'll help give you some additional context and background information that you might need to really understand what I'm saying. And that's our goal with the presentations. Not to distract, but to help people, help your audience understand a little bit better. Okay, so that was bullet point alternatives. Now we've got some title alternatives real quick. Your title does not have to be at the top. We will look at some examples of other places you can put the title. It doesn't have to be the largest text. It doesn't have to be the same on every slide. So you can get a little creative with the title and not stick yourself with the same format for every slide that you have. So let's look at some examples. I pulled all of these from just like the free templates that PowerPoint gives you. I didn't design any of these. But if you take a look, so the title for this one is Key Achievements. You can see it's off to the right. It's not all the way at the top. It's above the text, but it's not all the way at the top of the slide. And this way, it's not interfering with that image that's on the slide. This one also has an image, and the text is interfering. It's going over that image, but it's in this nice text box. It looks like it has a very little bit of transparency on it. Again, it's not all the way at the top, but it's above the text on the slide. And it has some other little interesting elements. It has that subtitle there. This one is interesting because the title is on a light background with dark text, whereas the rest of the content on the slide has a darker background with the lighter text. So that kind of draws a little more attention to your title, even though it's not up at the top. And then finally, here's a title down at the bottom, sort of more as like a caption or a support for the content on the slide rather than up at the top where it's introducing or dictating. And the last thing we're going to look at to kind of give us something different from what the defaults are in PowerPoint is some alternative backgrounds. So white backgrounds can look unfinished because that's the default in PowerPoint. I don't know if you can tell, this is a very light pink background that I have on this slide, but it looks like white. And the problem with that is it could be kind of harsh, having that bright light. Now, you guys are viewing this presentation at home on your computer, your own computers, or at work or whatever, and you can turn down the brightness if you want. But if I were presenting, in a room, let's say maybe even a dark room, maybe I'm a keynote speaker and I've got a spotlight on me, and I don't want a bright white background on my slides, like blaring at the audience from the stage. I want something dark that will support my presentation, but they are not the presentation. I am the presentation, right? And so that's what you can do for your presentations is really think about how and where you'll be presenting and what's going to be best for the audience in viewing that. So solid color, pattern, texture, gradient, kind of something kind of subtle. You can also, we're going to look at images and videos as backgrounds right now. Okay, so you could use an image as a background with, you can see the text box there has a little bit of transparency on it. And, I can put all my content on there. You can see I kind of changed the color, darkened the picture so that it's not the focal point. It's just giving the slide a nice polish. You could also try a video background. This has the potential to be distracting, so you want to be careful, intentional about it. But something like this, we're 18 minutes into our presentation now, so I might be losing some of you, right? And something like this is different. It might grab your audience like, oh, that's cool. But the fact that it's all kind of faded or blurred out, very subtle movement is going to make it not necessarily distracting for your audience. So that's something else that you could try. All right, next, development shortcuts. We're going to talk about, this is the shortest section. A couple of keyboard shortcuts. I'm not going to give you a list of like 100 different keyboard shortcuts because you won't remember all of them, but there are a couple that I use a lot that not everybody knows about. So I just want to show those to you real quick. Toolbars and panes that I use all the time. We'll go over those real quick. And the align and distribute tools. So most people know if you hold down the shift key and drag the corner of an element on a slide, it will maintain that same aspect ratio, right? It'll make it so that your picture doesn't get distorted. Everybody doesn't get, tall and skinny or short and fat, right? But if you hold down the shift key and move an object on the slide, like hold down shift, click and drag, then your object will stay on the same horizontal or vertical plane, and you won't have to worry about it lining all of your elements up later. So let me just show you what that looks like. So I could move it. If I hold down the shift key and drag that car, it will stay on exactly the same plane. Another one is using the control key. If you hold down the control key and move an object on your slide, it will duplicate it. And you can even combine these two, the shift and control. So if I hold down shift and control, click on this car and drag it over, it will duplicate it and keep it on that same horizontal plane. This is one that I think only works in Windows. So I apologize if it doesn't work on your Mac. All right, quick access toolbar. If you're doing much work in PowerPoint, you really want to customize your quick access toolbar if you haven't done that yet. So this is like shortcuts to everything that you use most often. You can see what's on mine right there. This is just, it makes it a lot easier so you don't have to dig through, 8 layers of menus to get to the tool that you want to use. So you can see the selection pane and the animation pane are on my quick access toolbars. I have those open all the time. The selection pane makes it nice and easy for you to rename elements on the slide, change the order of them as far as like what's on top of what. You can also lock elements and hide elements from here. When you start to get a lot of stuff on a slide, it's nice to be able to open up the selection pane and reorder things from there. A lot of times, like you're trying to click on something, but something else is on top of it. And how do you get to that thing? Open up the selection pane and you can click on it from there and then move it, do whatever you want with it. And then similarly, the animation pane. You can edit make changes to the options on all of your animations from here. You can reorder your animations. If you have a lot of animations on a slide, the animation pane makes it so much easier to organize all of those things. And finally, line and distribute tools. So we're going to look at what those do real quick here. So let's say you have a slide that looks like this. You need to line up all of these text boxes, right? So you could drag them all and, wait for the little red lines to line them up and get everything, in the right place. But you can also use the align and distribute tool. So select everything on the slide or everything that you want to align. And then in the align and distribute, and again, I apologize that I'm going quickly through these things, but all of the step-by-step is in that handout. So you can walk through these things if you don't already know where these tools are. But anyway, you can align, click for this one, I'm going to choose align right. And it lines everything up along the right edge. But you can see there's still like the space in between each of these is not even. And so that's where the distribute tool comes in handy. If you click distribute vertically here, then they all line up and perfect. And that's pretty quick, 2 clicks. If you just have one slide to do, you might want to just do it manually. But if you have a whole bunch of them, put the align and distribute tools on your quick access toolbar, and then it's really easy to just move through a whole slide deck aligning things the way that you want. All right, so I know we don't have the ability to unmute here or have the chat, but I see there are a couple of things in the Q&A. Oh, sorry, it freezes me when I click over into the meeting platform. Let's see. So to use sections, are you screenshotting that section page? Oh, good question, Elizabeth. She asked, so for the section Zoom, you can see the 2 of them on here right now. She asked if I was taking a screenshot and then hyperlinking that image. No, that's the great thing about this this automatic menu thing that PowerPoint creates for you. Let's say I go into that that first slide in the first section, design tips, and I change it to design ideas. It will automatically update on that menu slide. So you don't have to worry about making changes to those slides and then you have to, re-screenshot them or, whatever. So great question, Elizabeth. Thank you. Yeah, and Winona asked, you may have answered this question already. I see the handout on your LinkedIn page, but can it be downloaded? I was able to download it on desktop, but I had to, I think, open it full screen, and then it allowed me to download it. I couldn't figure it out on mobile. To be fair, I only spent like 1 minute on it. But yes, so if you get to it on desktop, you should be able to download it. If you're having any trouble, just shoot me a message on LinkedIn, and I will send it to you. All right. I would, though, still love to know if there are any things that we talked about in these first 2 sections that you can see yourself using in your jobs. And I know you can't unmute. Got it. The full screen worked good, Winona. So in the Q&A, if you guys could just let me know if there are any of these things that you think you could use in your work. And I'll read them off because I don't think you guys can see the Q&A. Cameo. Yes, every time I talk about this stuff, everybody gets kind of excited about Cameo. If the stuff that we talked about in this first section was not new to you, don't worry, because the next two sections are a little bit more complex. So hopefully we will find something that will be useful to you. All right. Let's keep moving. This next section, graphics and animation. This is, I think, a little more of the meat of the presentation here. So we're going to quickly talk about customizing icons in Smart Art. There's a remove image background hack. I'm calling it a hack. I don't know if that's really what it is. Merge shapes, animations, and the morph transition. Those are really going to make up the remainder of this presentation. Different examples of how you can use those. Okay, so real quick, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew that you can actually ungroup icons and Smart Art within PowerPoint. So icons, you know, just like the free icons, right, that come with PowerPoint. You might choose something like this. And most people know you can change the color on it, or you could add like a shadow or a border or whatever. But you can also ungroup it. And it becomes each of those little, I don't know, shine lines are their own shape. So you can change the color of things separately, and you can even delete parts of it. So you can see in this little 4 out of 5 stars thing that I did here, you've got the shine lines. Every other one is a different color. I added a glow effect. But on that last one, that 5th star is just gray. I took away all of the shine lines after ungrouping them. So just something that comes in handy quite often. This also helps, like if you have an icon that you want, but PowerPoint doesn't have exactly what you're looking for, you might be able to ungroup an icon, delete the parts that you don't need, or, change things out to get it to look the way that you want. I've done that before too. And then Smart Art. So Smart Art, I don't use Smart Art except sometimes in to speed up development of things. So Smart Art, if you don't know, makes it really easy to make graphics for your slides. If you insert some Smart Art, you can choose all different kinds of shapes. This is a basic timeline on the screen right now, but so you can, on the left there where it says type your text here, you type whatever content, the text that you want, and it will automatically adjust the graphic on the right to fit that text. So you can add a 4th bullet point and it will automatically make that timeline longer, whatever. So that's handy. But what I really like to do with Smart Art is, get all your content in there, it'll quickly adjust itself, and then you can ungroup it, and then you just have a bunch of separate text boxes and shapes that you can then do whatever you want with. So, something like this, you can animate each part to come in one at a time. You can change those shapes on the timeline. You can change the font color. You can change the font, all kinds of different things. So just keep that in mind, that you have the ability to unsmart art your Smart Art. I use this sometimes when, a lot of times, like I'm working on a slide deck that someone else has created and, they want me to make it look better. And so that makes it really easy. If somebody else puts some Smart Art in there, it gives me an idea of what they're looking for, but then I can take their Smart Art, ungroup it, and, adjust it to exactly what we want it to look like. All right, quick background removal trick that you can do in PowerPoint. So PowerPoint does have an image background removal tool, but it's not great. So I tried it with this image. This is the logo from my Central Ohio ATD chapter. And if I try to use the remove background tool that's in PowerPoint, this is what it does. All of that purple it thinks is background. You can see in this logo, there's a lot of like really fine lines in it. And so, PowerPoint wasn't able to detect that. I could pull this into Photoshop and do it that way, but for something like this, I can actually use what's called set transparent color. And so it's in the picture format tools, under color, set transparent color. And so what you do, you select that, and then you click on white in this, any white on that image, and it will make all of the white transparent. So if you have a solid color background that doesn't have any, texture or gradient or shadows or anything on it, this works really well. In one click, I was able to remove that whole background. Okay, so now we're going to get into merge shapes. And this is the first thing I'm going to show you with merge shapes. Probably not the thing that you would use the most often, but it's kind of sets the scene for some of the other things that we're doing. So we're going to go over this first. So see that fall flowers graphic? That is, you can't in PowerPoint fill text with an image, but you can do this sort of workaround to be able to do that. So the way I created this is you've got a rectangle, any color, doesn't matter. This, we've got, I've got my video mirrored. Fall flowers. Text, that's just like text in a text box. And then underneath that is the black rectangle. And the merge shapes tool does sort of like, if you've ever done any scrapbooking, how they have those hole punches that'll punch, a star or a heart out of paper. That's sort of how this is. So you've got your black rectangle, and then on top of that, you've got, oops, sorry, bumped my microphone. Sorry about that. On top of that, you've got the text, and then you're sort of like punching it out if you use merge shapes fragment. And so what you'll end up, fragment. So what you'll end up with is you've got this rectangle and it has transparent fall flowers. And then you have the text fall flowers that was punched out of the black rectangle. So it just looks like black text. Now, the reason we need to do that is because we need the text to be a shape so we can do shape things with it, like merge shapes. You can't do that with actual text. So this is the first step. We have fall flowers written in black because it was kind of punched out of that black rectangle. And then step 2 is to use the merge shapes again on top of this picture. So then you can, punch the merge shapes out of that picture. And that's how you end up with that fall flowers up at the top. If I lost anybody, this one really is like step by step in the handout of how to do this. And so that's your introduction to merge shapes. And we will talk a little bit more about some different things that you can do with merge shapes. Next, this is also merge shapes, and this one is actually easier, even though it looks like it might be a little more complex. So this is, remember how when we punched fall flowers out of the black rectangle? In this case, we don't need the text. We can delete the text, and we're keeping the rectangle with the letters punched out of it. And so that's what this is. And then behind that, so questions is transparent. So then behind that, we have a video playing. So you can, makes it look like the video is playing in the text. And we're going to shift here a little bit into the morph transition, some cool things you can do with that. But we will come back to merge shapes in the next section where we start to combine some of these things. Okay, so morph. If you didn't already know, you can create GIFs with PowerPoint, export GIFs. So we're going to talk about that. But first, an introduction to the morph transition. So morph is in the transitions menu, which is how you get from one slide to the next, right? What morph does is So you create a slide. I created this slide. It's got these 3 screenshots on it, and they're stacked on top of each other. And then I want to make an animation where they sort of, like splay out so you can see all 3 of them. So I made this slide, stacked them on top of each other, duplicated that slide, and then moved them, a little bit. And then I added the morph transition, and that's all I have to do. You can do some of these things with a motion path, but morph makes it easier. So that's all I did. I duplicated that slide, moved a couple of the things. And morph does that. Makes it look like a nice, smooth animation. And you can file, export, create an animated GIF. You can create, export this as a GIF and then use it on, website, social media, e-learning course, wherever. And you can even get a transparent background on it. Sometimes it's hard to, some of the tools that we have don't do transparent background on GIFs or make it, kind of hard to get that transparent background. It's very easy with PowerPoint. It's limited. I mean, it's not, it's good in these situations where it's something simple like that. You can also morph Cameo. Picture, video here. It works like any other shape. I don't know if you've been watching throughout the presentation, but I have different borders on the camera. And you can also, I can morph myself into, oh, look, I'm on this old school TV. And I can morph myself into being on the side of the slide like this. So that's something else to keep in mind that you can do with morph. Morph can also create a scrolling effect. So we're going to talk about how to do that. We've got these 2, a laptop and a cell phone. The content that's on these right now is from the Central Ohio conference that I spoke at. And it's, from the conference app. But Morph will do this for you. It'll make it look like it's scrolling. The way we do that is, so you've got this image, and you want to make it look like, you're scrolling down to the bottom of that image. So you have your device, you have your image, your screenshot, whatever you want to use. And so you crop the image to fit on that screen at the top of the screen. Duplicate that slide. On the next slide, you can move, like keep those crop lines exactly where they were before, but move the image up so that you're now, the bottom of the image is showing within those crop lines. And you can hold down the shift key while you do it so that it stays in the same vertical plane and you don't get any wavering. And then, so that's it. The one slide, duplicate it, move those things, apply the morph transition, and it does the scrolling animation for you. You'll notice that the laptop is scrolling a lot faster than the cell phone. That's because that image is a lot longer. And so it's trying to make them fit into start and stop at the same time. But you can adjust that timing within PowerPoint of how long it takes to actually do that scrolling. Similarly, you could simulate a screen capture video using the morph transition. I do, plenty of screen captures. A lot of times it's video though, and so I can edit it and get the narration to line up the right way and add little pauses here. But when you're presenting live, like I am right now, you probably don't want to just play a video because you want to be able to talk, and you don't want to just have to speed up or slow down your talking to match this video. It takes a lot of practice and is kind of a pain. So what you could do is use Morph to, we're going to scroll down this screen here. You can see the arrow also moved over. And so I can talk about blah, blah, blah. Here's how you update your profile within the conference app. So you find your name, you click on it. It'll take you to your profile page. You need to click on that pencil in the upper right. The Morph is going to do that for us. you click and it takes you to the edit profile page, fill in your name, blah, 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 blah. So that way you can control when it goes to each of the next steps instead of having to catch up with a video or a GIF. Side note, if you noticed how my name came in one letter at a time like that, that's an option within the animation pane. So I put the appear animation on my name, and then under effect options, you can animate the text by letter. You can also do it by word and make the text come in like that so it looks like you're typing it. All right. We are running short on time, so we're not actually going to check in here, but I'm going to just jump into our last section, and that is focusing attention. And I know that's been the goal of this whole presentation, but there are a few techniques in here that really spotlighting and magnification that really help with this. So this is using the merge shapes tool. You can, let's say you've got this big chart and you need the whole thing on the slide because you need that full context for, whatever it is you're saying. But you want your audience to focus in first on the efficiency apartment, the area of Ohio, where with the lowest FMR for efficiency apartments. And there's a big long list of numbers there, and you could make your audience, try and look and interpret all of that, or you can make it very easy for them by doing this sort of spotlight effect. And this is the merge shapes tool. So we've got covering the chart, you've got a whole a rectangle covering the chart, and then smaller rectangles over Mansfield, Ohio, and 497, because those are the things that we want to spotlight. And we punch those out of the big rectangle, and this is what you're left with. Add a little transparency to that rectangle, and you can spotlight certain things in the chart. And then you can add the morph transition if you want to kind of make it look like a smooth transition to now you want to talk about the one-bedroom apartments that have the lowest FMR, right? So that's something that you can do when you have a busy slide that you can't do anything about all of the content on there. This way you can focus your audience's attention on what they should actually be looking at. And you can do this with images also. So you've got this busy image here, and you want to talk about, the new light fixtures. And so you could, draw a circle on it or something like that. But you could also, this would be very handy for, if you work in somewhere where, maybe manufacturing and you are introducing people to parts of their workstation or the product that they're making or, whatever. This way you can highlight certain things. So this is the merge shapes tool. So I drew a shape over that light fixture that I want to draw attention to. Now, it's not a perfect circle. You could go ahead and just put a perfect circle over it and do it that way. You can also, in PowerPoint, edit the points of a shape to make your own custom shape. You can draw custom shapes, but you can also edit the points. So I put a circle over it, and then I use the edit points tool to make the shape exactly the shape of that light fixture. That edit points is a little, if you know how to use the pen tool in Illustrator, it'll be a lot easier for you to do this in PowerPoint. If you aren't very good at that, it might be a little frustrating for you. You might just want to end up putting a circle around it, but I wanted to show you that this is possible. Okay, so I edited the points, and I'm going to punch out that green blob out of the background rectangle, and there it is. You can put a little transparency on that rectangle, and now you're really spotlighting that one part. And you could do this for multiple things, just like we did with the chart where we spotlighted two different things in the same chart. Another option is a magnifying effect. So again, we've got this busy picture. Let's say we want to talk about the new projector that we got in this, room in our office, right? So you could do something like this. We darkened the picture, we made the projector bigger, and we put that, circle around it. The way this is done, and I apologize, I know we're over time here. We're almost done. This I think is the last thing I need to show you guys. So hang in there with me if you can. So this is 2 copies of the same picture, one on top of the other. So the background one is just, I slightly darkened it. The top one, I cropped it to a circle. That's a function in PowerPoint. You can crop to a shape. So I cropped this to a circle and then made the crop area just like we did in that scrolling effect. Made the crop area have the projector inside it, and then I dragged the corner of the picture to make it bigger. So this projector is actually like kind of twice the size. It's magnified within that cropped circle. So it looks like we're magnifying the picture, but we have 2 pictures going on here. And the really cool thing, you can combine this with Morph and make it look like you are scrolling around the picture and magnifying different things. And that, that's just Morph. So what I did, I just moved that whole circle over to, the copy machine there, and then hit the crop option within the picture tools and moved the picture so that the copy machine was visible in that circle. And then Morph did that whole animation. Again, I know I went by that really quick. Step-by-step instructions are in the handout. If you get stuck on anything, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Happy to help. So that is the main content. Last thing I want to show you is just some of these resources real quick. I learned a lot from these Bright Carbon webinars. Richard Goring does most of them. They also have a free Bright Slide add-in, which is really cool. I have no affiliation with any of this. These are the things that have helped me. All of these are listed on the handout also. So if you get that, you can check all of those out. Finally, I know we are about out of time here, but if you have any questions, I can stick around for a few more minutes, or like I said, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I want to say thank you so much for everybody for coming. And I really would love to hear from people if there are, certain things that you really liked that you're going to use. Put it in the Q&A right now or shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Yeah, thank you all so much. Let me turn on my camera here. And Tom, do we need
Super.
to? All right.
Well, thank you ever so much for presenting. Thank you everyone for joining us in the chat and staying around. The next and final session for the day will be our keynote from Rick Jacobs. Please come and join us for that. But until then, have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is where you are, and we shall see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody.